Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Horror Stories. I know many of you use these episodes to fall asleep, so before you drift off, I'd love it if you could leave a comment letting me know where you're listening from around the world. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe if you're enjoying the episodes. Story 1. I've never been the kind of person known for planning ahead. My ex would probably say that I live in a permanent state of good enough. Now I'm a single father. My daughter Mia is 8 years old. When she's with me, I try to make everything as stable and normal as possible. But when she's not, I have to admit that my apartment looks like it was decorated by a guy who thinks folding chairs are a fine substitute for living room furniture. In February 2021, I moved into a new apartment in Spokane. 2 bedrooms, linoleum floor in the kitchen, and a view of the parking lot that I pretended to see as urban rustic. My budget barely stretched, so I did what I usually do when I need something but don't want to pay full price. I went to Craigslist. Craigslist is basically the IKEA for single dads. You don't go there for design or aesthetics. You go because someone's selling a dresser for $50, and if you squint hard enough, you can imagine it's vintage. What I really needed was a couch. The old one had died months earlier. The springs were poking through the cushions. One armrest was held together with duct tape. Mia used to jump on it like it was a trampoline, and I was afraid one day she'd disappear inside it like into a black hole. I threw it out during the move and promised myself, with the first paycheck in the new place, I'll buy something halfway decent. While scrolling through Craigslist, I found one that looked acceptable. Brown microfiber, a bit bulky, but it looked in good shape in the photos. The listing said, $80 pickup only non-smoking home. $80 was right within my budget. Cheap enough to ignore that little voice in my head whispering, it might smell like wet dog. I borrowed a friend's truck, loaded it up, and dragged it into my apartment with that sweaty pride only a divorced man with no upper body strength can understand. I set it in place, stepped back, and thought, yep, that looks like a couch. Mission accomplished. That first night, I sprawled on it with a frozen pizza and Netflix. It wasn't exactly comfortable. The cushions sank in weird spots, like the previous owner had a favorite sleeping position for 10 years straight. Still, it was better than sitting on the floor. A couple of days passed before I noticed something wasn't right. The smell. It wasn't strong or unbearable, not like cat pee, but it had this faint, stale funk, a mix of old sweat and dampness. I figured maybe it had been stored in a basement. I sprayed so much air freshener that the air practically shimmered, and I let it go. But then little things started to appear. One night, as I shifted in my seat, I heard a metallic clink. I reached between the cushions and pulled out a quarter. Nothing strange. Couches eat coins all the time. The next day, while vacuuming, I saw a hair tie fall out from under the seat. Pink, stretched out, with a dark hair still tangled in it. I don't use hair ties, and Mia's are all rainbow-colored ones from Target. I told myself it was normal. People lose things in couches. That's what they're for, apparently. But as days went by, there was more. I found a crumpled grocery receipt dated almost a year earlier. A faded movie ticket stub, barely legible. A bobby pin, a nail file. It was as if the couch was spitting out pieces of someone else's life. By then, curiosity had already started itching under my skin. One Saturday, while Mia was with her mom, I decided to do a full excavation. I pulled out the cushions, shoved my arm as deep as it would go, and swept my hand side to side. My fingers brushed something flat and papery. I grabbed it and pulled it out. A small black notebook with a loose elastic band hanging from it. I sat there on the floor staring at it, my heart beating faster than I wanted to admit. For a second I thought, cool, maybe it's full of sketches or a diary, something artsy. But part of me already knew it wasn't going to be that simple. I opened it. Even before reading, the handwriting unsettled me. Tight, compressed, almost furious. The words crowded together as if the writer couldn't stop. At first it seemed harmless. Dates, descriptions of someone called L. Apparently L was beautiful, perfect, always wearing blue sneakers. I turned a few more pages and things went downhill fast. The author described watching Elle at coffee shops, following her car, noting what she ate, who she talked to. Today she didn't see me, but she will. My stomach turned. The more I read, the worse it got. Pages of obsession, fixation. Her smile, her hair, the detail that she never locked the back door. The handwriting slanted harder, the black ink digging into the paper. If she won't talk to me, I'll make her. And then an entry that froze my blood. No one has seen her since Tuesday. They're putting up flyers, but I know where she is. I snapped the notebook shut as if it burned me. I sat there on the floor of my apartment, the diary in my lap, realizing I might be holding something that belonged to... what? A stalker? Or something worse? My mouth was dry. I felt stupid for having touched it without gloves. For a while, I just stared at the couch. That damn $80 couch. Had someone hidden it there and forgotten? Or had they left it there on purpose? The next morning, I took the notebook to the police station. The officer at the front desk flipped through it and asked how I'd gotten it. I told him, I found it inside a couch I bought on Craigslist. He wrote something down and said they'd look into it. Nothing more. No explanations, no reassurance. Just a "we'll take care of it." I walked out of there feeling like I just handed over a piece of poison without knowing where it had leaked from. Weeks went by. The police never called. I thought about following up, but honestly, part of me didn't want to know. I didn't want to confirm that what I'd read was connected to a real missing person. I imagined a family putting up flyers while the author of that notebook was writing his fantasies in his living room. The couch stayed in my apartment. I couldn't afford another one right away, but I hated it. Every time I sat down, I thought about who else had sat there before me, what they'd thought, what they'd written. When Mia came over, she'd curl up with her tablet, her legs hanging over the armrest, and I'd force a smile while my skin crawled. I never told her about the notebook. There are things kids shouldn't have to carry. A few months later, I managed to save enough to buy a new couch from a discount store. The old one I didn't even try to sell. I dragged it to the back of the building, left it beside the dumpsters, and abandoned it in the rain. Still, I couldn't forget it. Every time I found something secondhand, every piece of furniture I brought home, I'd inspect it thoroughly. I'd pull out drawers, flip cushions, run my hand along seams like a paranoid man. Most of the time, I found nothing but dust. But every time I thought of that notebook, of how the ink dug into the paper, of that one phrase, I know where she is. I'll never know if it was real or just the delusions of someone unstable. But the uncertainty, that's what haunts me the most. Now every time I sit on a couch, mine, a friend's, even in a waiting room, I wonder what might be hidden inside. What secrets people leave behind waiting to be found by someone else. I learned the hard way that sometimes the most sinister thing about an object isn't what you see on the outside, but what someone left trapped inside it. Story 2. Des Moines in December is so quiet you can hear the house complain to itself. The boiler shutting off, the structure creaking as it cools. I'm 31 years old, a freelance editor for YouTube channels, and most nights I work late at the dining room table while my husband, Matthew, sleeps at the end of the hall. I always keep the baby monitor next to me, the screen showing my 5-month-old son, Theo, sleeping in his crib. It was our routine. Bath, bottle, a whale projector casting fake stars onto the ceiling, and then the sound machine set to rain. Nothing fancy, but it worked. The monitor gave me peace of mind, and I depended on it more than I like to admit. The first whisper came so faintly I thought I imagined it. It's okay. I looked at the screen. Theo was curled up, fast asleep. The green audio bar on the monitor flickered normally. Static, the soft patter of rain sounds. I convinced myself it was interference. Baby monitors pick up weird things. Radios, phones, even neighbors' devices. But a few nights later, around 2 a.m, I heard it again, clearer this time. Go back to sleep. That made me freeze. The voice wasn't mine. It wasn't Matthew's either. It sounded calm, exactly the tone I use when I'm standing by Theo's crib. I walked down the hall and peeked into the baby's room. Silence except for the sound machine. Matthew shrugged. "Probably radio interference," he said. I tried to believe him, but I started keeping a log. December 12th, 2:18 a.m. It's okay. December 14th, 3:01 a.m. Go back to sleep. December 18th, 1:56 a.m. Good baby. Always the same words, soft, soothing. We tried everything. Resetting the monitor, changing frequencies, moving it away from the router, even replacing it. But no matter what I did, the whispers kept slipping through. The night that broke me was December 21st. Theo stirred in his crib. On the monitor I heard, "Good baby. Go back to sleep." The words sounded so close. I picked up the receiver and walked down the hall. When I opened the door to the room, the whisper didn't cut off. It was still there, not in the device I held in my hand, but in the room itself, coming from the tiny speaker of the monitor camera. I yanked the plug. The voice stopped mid-syllable. Just like that. The next morning, we returned that monitor and bought another brand with encryption and all the promises of security. For 2 nights, nothing happened. On the third, again. It's okay. So I called the manufacturer, then the internet company, and finally the police. Everyone gave me the same answers. Interference, cross signals, simple technical glitches. But none of the explanations matched the exact timing. The words always came just after Theo moved, as if whoever was speaking could see him. I tried to record it with my phone, but the voice never came when I was ready. It was as if it knew. The scariest part wasn't the words themselves, but how normal they sounded. Kind, gentle. The same phrases I repeated every night. Hearing them from someone or something else made the baby's room stop feeling like ours. We locked down every possible setting, even dug an old audio-only analog monitor out of storage. That one crackled and hissed like a campfire, but it was honest noise. The sleek new monitor kept whispering. Over time, the frequency decreased, but it never completely stopped. Some nights I'd wake up for no reason, heart racing, waiting, listening for that familiar tone. Other times it slipped in casually. Shh. A single word was enough to ruin the rest of my night. I still don't know what it was. With my rational mind, I can tell you about interference, stray signals, even someone hacking baby monitors. But deep down, I can't erase the memory of being in that room that night, my son in my arms, while a voice that wasn't mine whispered comfort to him in his own room. Now, even though Theo is older, I still keep the monitor volume low. I still tape over the LEDs. And once in a while, in the middle of the night, I lie awake listening, just in case a voice that doesn't belong to us comes back. Story 3. I live in Denver and do some photography work, graduation portraits, product shots for small businesses. But my real passion is simply taking photos. In April 2021, a group of friends and I took a weekend trip, exploring the city, visiting mountain lookouts, and eating way too much cafe food. When I got back home, I sat down at my desk to do what I love most, sorting, editing, and reliving the trip frame by frame. I began going through the photos as usual, checking composition, light, balance. Then one detail stopped me. A man barely captured in the frame off to the left side, like an accident. Baseball cap, dark windbreaker, hands in pockets. At first glance, nothing special, just another stranger in the background. But the way his chin was slightly lifted gave the impression that he knew I was there. I moved on. In city photos, there are always random people in the background. But later, while editing shots from the mountain overlook, I saw him again. This time farther away, standing on the next ridge. Same cap, same jacket, same squared stance. A knot formed in my stomach. I wanted to believe it was just coincidence. Lots of people wear dark jackets and caps. But as I kept reviewing the weekend's folder, he appeared again. Reflected in a bakery window, blurry but there. And again in a street photo, the only one looking directly at the camera while everyone else faced another way. In a group photo at a cafe, he was visible through the window of the building across the street, chin raised the same way as before. What unsettled me wasn't just that he showed up in several photos, it was the way he was always looking at me. I zoomed in, trying to disprove it. Maybe I was imagining similarities, but even Lightroom's facial recognition system tagged him across multiple images. 4 locations, 2 days, always aligned with my lens. I showed the photos to some friends. They laughed. "You've got a fan," one said. Another shrugged. Coincidence. I tried to laugh with them, but the man's body language disturbed me. He wasn't just in the photos, he was aware of them. I printed a contact sheet with all the images where he appeared. On paper, the pattern was worse. In every shot, his posture was identical. Shoulders straight, chin slightly raised. Not looking at the scenery or the crowd, looking at me. The one that bothered me most was the crosswalk photo. I'd taken it through my car windshield, a throwaway image. But there he was again, stepping off the curb, perfectly aligned with the camera. Out of all the photos from that weekend, that one convinced me. He hadn't stumbled into the background by accident. He had been following us. During the trip, nothing strange happened. No one approached us. No odd encounters. If you'd asked me right after, I'd have said it was a great weekend. But the photos told another story. Someone had been watching us. And not just watching, making sure that I would see him later. Who do you even call for something like that? I mean, what could I possibly say? It sounded ridiculous even in my head. "Excuse me, officer. I think someone's stalking me through my photos." Instead, I changed my habits. I stopped tagging locations on photos I posted online, and I started uploading only after I'd already left a place. The others forgot about it. They teased me a little, but for them it was just background noise. For me, it stayed. Photography used to mean freezing happy moments. Now I scan every corner of every shot, afraid of finding something staring back. The truth is, I'll never know who he was. Maybe a traveler with the same itinerary. Maybe someone who noticed the camera and decided to play with it. Or maybe someone who wanted me to notice, and no one else. I still take photos. I still love it. But I can't look through a set of images without scanning the background, waiting to see if he's there again. Cap, jacket, chin raised, staring straight at me. Because every photo says, "I was here." And those images whisper back, "So was I." Story 4. I've been a paramedic long enough to know that nights in Albuquerque rarely leave room for imagination. When you're on shift, you run on vitals, addresses, and timestamps. Everything else is just noise. But some calls don't fade when the night ends. They stick to you. It was February 2020, night shift. Rivas and I were posted near Coors, parked in a half-empty lot. He was scrolling through sports scores on his phone while I snapped a glove against my wrist, just killing time. The usual calm before dispatch broke over the radio. Medic 8, respond code 2, difficulty breathing. Adult male, family on scene, Albuquerque fire en route. We started up the rig. The farther south we drove, the thinner the city lights became. When we reached the address, our headlights swept over a small house tucked off the roadside, weeds creeping along both sides. And in front of it, motionless, stood a girl, maybe 15 or 20 yards past the fence. She was wearing a hospital gown. Bare legs, bare feet. Pale face, dark hair hanging limp. "Rivas," I said. "Look." He leaned forward, squinting. "What?" "I just see the tree line." I didn't argue, but I couldn't look away from her. Then the front door flew open, and a woman started waving frantically, snapping me back to the call. Inside, the patient sat in a recliner, gasping, lips bluish. Classic COPD flare-up. I cuffed his arm, clipped the pulse oximeter on, and looped the oxygen cannula around his ears. Rivas prepped the nebulizer while the wife tried not to cry. The firefighters came in with their big gear bags. One asked if we wanted them to check the yard. "After we move them," I said. "Let's handle the urgent part first." We transferred him, blanket snug, monitor leads attached. As we carried him out, I glanced back toward the tree line. Empty. The pale figure was gone. In the back of the rig, I rode with him, swapping nebulizers and watching his oxygen climb slowly. At the hospital, the respiratory therapist took over. While his wife signed the paperwork, I asked the charge nurse, "Anyone wandering around tonight?" Patient in a gown, maybe late teens or early 20s, dark hair. She shook her head. "Not from here. If someone had escaped, we'd have a report. But I knew what I'd seen. I've spent half my life around those gowns. What won't leave me is that moment before we loaded him into the ambulance, when I looked back one more time out of habit. For an instant, less than a blink, I thought I saw her again, closer this time. Same pale legs, same loose gown. But it was the angle that stayed with me. Her head was tilted toward me, not toward the house. And though she was too far away for me to see her eyes, I felt her looking at me. Not curious, not lost, watching me as if she had been waiting for me. "Let's go," said Rivas. I turned. When I looked back again, there was nothing, just branches shifting in the wind. The firefighters swore their sweep turned up nothing. The hospital confirmed no patients had escaped. And still that stillness, the way she didn't move or speak, burned itself into my mind. People in distress wave their arms, stumble, call for help. She didn't. She stood there like someone had placed her at the edge of the dark and told her to stay. Weeks later, that call was still with me. One afternoon, we were posted near that same stretch when a veteran firefighter struck up a conversation. I mentioned the girl, half joking, hoping for a rational explanation. His face didn't change. "You're not the first," he said. "A couple of years ago, a rookie swore he saw a patient in a hospital gown standing by the woods. Same thing. Too clean, too still. Reported it, but no one was missing." Another medic lowered his voice. "They say a girl escaped from the state psychiatric hospital back in the 90s. Never found her. Some of the old-timers call her the Watcher. Shows up near the tree line, vanishes if you blink, always in a gown." They laughed after that, but not in a funny way. More like someone whistling while walking past a cemetery. I won't say I believe in ghosts, but I won't say I don't either. What I do know is what I saw and what I felt. That weight of being watched. Funny how one call can change things. That stretch of road used to mean nothing. Now every time I drive by, I scan the tree line. Not because I expect to see her, but because part of me is afraid that I will. That's the call that stuck with me. Not the COPD patient, not the nebulizer I set up, not the vitals I logged. The girl in the gown who stood too still, left no trace, and maybe was never really there. And I'll be honest, sometimes I wonder if, one night when I drive past that road again, she'll be closer than before. Story 5. I was 28 and in grad school, living in student housing in Ithaca. It wasn't anything glamorous, just a rundown 2-bedroom apartment with creaky floors, paper-thin walls, and heating that worked only when it felt like it. But the rent was cheap, and in a place like Ithaca, that's enough reason not to complain too much. My roommate Jeremy was also a grad student. We weren't close friends, but we got along fine. He was a little older than me, around 30, quiet, tidy, reserved. Once he told me that as a kid he used to have sleepwalking issues, but had grown out of them. He said it casually, like he was talking about a bad haircut that had finally grown back. At the time, I thought it was just one of those random personal facts people drop in conversation. I didn't know that piece of information would come back to haunt me. It was a Wednesday night in 2019. I'd stayed up late grading papers and finally dragged myself to bed around 2 in the morning. I remember how oppressively silent the room felt, the kind of silence that makes you hyper-aware of your own breathing. At some point, I woke up. No noise, no sudden movement. Just that strange feeling that something wasn't right. I turned over and nearly jumped out of bed. Jeremy was standing at the foot of it. He wasn't moving, just standing there looking down at me. His eyes were wide open, glassy, unfocused. His lips were slightly parted, as if frozen mid-thought. I sat up and whispered, "Jeremy, are you okay?" No response. I tried again, louder this time. "Jeremy." That's when he leaned forward slightly and, in a low, flat voice, whispered, "I'm waiting for him to move." Every hair on my body stood on end. I didn't know what to say. I just sat there staring at him until slowly he turned his head, mechanically almost, and walked out of my room. His footsteps faded down the hallway, soft against the old wooden floor. I sat there for at least 10 minutes, heart pounding before getting up, locking the door and forcing myself back into bed. The next morning I asked him about it. He looked genuinely puzzled and said he hadn't sleepwalked in years. Then he laughed. "Man, if I did, I don't remember any of it." I wanted to believe him. Sleepwalking made sense, right? The logical explanation. But that sentence, "I'm waiting for him to move," kept echoing in my head like a broken record. Who was him? Me? Someone else? A week later, it happened again. I woke around 3 in the morning. The hallway light was on. My door, normally closed all the way, was slightly ajar. When I looked out, I saw Jeremy standing there in the hall, facing my door, motionless. This time I didn't say a word. I slid out of bed, pushed the door shut, and locked it. The next morning, he acted completely normal, making oatmeal and humming to himself. I asked if he'd turned on the hallway light last night. He shook his head. "Nope, must have been you." But I knew it wasn't. The third time was the worst. It was late January. I'd been trying to ignore the unease, telling myself it was stress or lack of sleep. But that night proved it wasn't just in my head. I woke again to that heavy silence. And there he was, closer than ever. Not at the foot of the bed this time. He was right beside me. I could see every detail of his face in the faint glow from the streetlight filtering through the window. His eyes were open, staring directly at me. His breathing was slow. Before I could speak, he whispered again, in the same dull monotone, "It's almost ready." That was it for me. I shot upright, shoved him backward, and screamed his name. He blinked rapidly, confused, like he'd just woken up from something. Then he muttered, "What the hell?" and stumbled out of the room. I didn't sleep for the rest of the night. The next day I confronted him. He swore up and down that he didn't remember anything. Said, "Maybe I was dreaming. Maybe I'm just stressed." He got defensive, like I was accusing him of something. But here's the part that still makes my stomach turn. A few days later, while cleaning the living room, I found one of Jeremy's old notebooks wedged under the TV stand. I couldn't help myself. I opened it. Most of it was class notes. But toward the end, the pages changed, filled with fragmented phrases, scrawled over and over as if written in a trance. "He will move. It's almost ready. Don't wake him yet." I slammed the notebook shut and shoved it back where I found it. I didn't want him to know I'd seen it. 2 weeks later, I moved out, using needing more space as an excuse. To this day, I don't know if Jeremy was truly sleepwalking or if something else was happening. I don't know if he was even aware of what he was saying, or if those words were meant for me. But sometimes I still wake up in the middle of the night and swear I can hear that whisper again. I'm waiting for him to move. And I can't shake the feeling that someday I'll finally find out who he is. If you just became suddenly aware of the darkness behind you. Yeah, me too. Like the video, subscribe so you don't miss the next scare, and tell me in the comments, what part got under your skin tonight? Thanks for watching. Stay alert, stay safe, and I'll see you in the next nightmare.